You ever wonder why some goals you set just seem to stick, while others, well, they just fall apart after a week? Today, we're diving deep into the ideas from James Clear's Atomic Habits. We're going to explore this incredible concept that the biggest, most life-changing results don't come from some massive heroic effort. Nope. They come from changes so small you'll barely even notice them. Let's get right into it. You know the feeling. We've all been there. You get this huge burst of motivation, right? You set a big, ambitious goal, and for a week, maybe two, you are absolutely on fire. But then, poof, the spark just fizzles out and you're right back where you started. It's such a frustrating cycle. But what if the problem isn't you? What if it's not about a lack of willpower at all? What if your entire strategy is just wrong? And this really gets to the core of it. We usually blame ourselves, thinking, I just need more motivation. But motivation is fickle, right? It's an unreliable fuel source. It comes and goes. The real secret, the game changer, isn't about having more willpower. It's about building a system that works for you, even on the days when your motivation is at absolute zero. So, what in the world is an atomic habit? Well, think about that word atomic in two different ways. First, atomic as in tiny, almost invisible, like an atom. But also think of atomic as in the source of immense energy and power, like in an atomic explosion. That's what these habits are. They're these tiny, fundamental units that, when you combine them, create just explosive results. Okay, so the first major principle here is a big one, and honestly, it's a little profound. It's this: stop focusing so much on what you want to achieve and start focusing on who you wish to become. It's a complete 180 from how most of us think about self-improvement. Let me put it this way. An outcome-based goal is something like, I want to run a marathon. Okay, great, but that has an endpoint. What happens after you cross that finish line? It's over. An identity-based goal, on the other hand, is, I want to be a runner. See the difference? That's a fundamental shift in who you are. A runner doesn't just stop after one race. Running is part of their identity. This is such a powerful way to think about it. Every single small action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. You write one sentence? That's a vote for, I am a writer. You read just one page? That's a vote for, I am a reader. These little votes build up, day after day, slowly but surely creating a mountain of evidence for your new identity. This example from the book just nails it. Think about someone who's trying to quit smoking. If they say, no thanks, I'm trying to quit, they're still holding on to the identity of a smoker who's struggling. But if they say, no thanks, I'm not a smoker, everything changes. They've fundamentally changed how they see themselves, and the behavior just naturally follows that new identity. All right, so if our identity is built by all these tiny votes, how much of a difference do they really make? I mean, they're so small. Well, this is where the math gets absolutely mind-blowing. We have this tendency to just dismiss small improvements, right? We think they won't really matter. But what we're forgetting is probably the most powerful force in the universe: compounding. Just 1%. That's it. That's the magic number. The goal isn't some massive overnight transformation. It's simply to get 1% better today than you were yesterday. I know it sounds like nothing, but just wait. And this right here, this is why so many of us give up. In the beginning, the results of getting 1% better are frankly invisible. It feels like you're grinding away, putting in all this work for absolutely nothing. James Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential. But this is the most critical phase. If you can just push through it, that's when the compounding effect really kicks in, and your results just explode. To really get this, there's a brilliant analogy. Imagine you have an ice cube in a room that's 27 degrees. You start to slowly raise the temperature. 28 degrees, 29, 30, 31, and still absolutely nothing is happening. You just have a cold, solid block of ice. It feels like all that effort, all that energy is just being wasted. And then you hit 32 degrees, and suddenly you have a breakthrough. The ice begins to melt. Now, was that 1 degree shift from 31 to 32 some kind of magic? Of course not. The real work was done by all those degrees that came before it. And that is the key takeaway here. Your effort is never, ever wasted. It's just being stored up for that breakthrough moment. Here's another way to think about it, that
I just love. If you're hammering a rock 100 times and it finally cracks on that last hit, was it that one final blow that did all the work? No way. It was the accumulation of the 99 strikes that came before it that weakened the rock enough to break. You just never know which effort is going to be the one that finally creates the breakthrough.
So we get it. We need to build an identity through these tiny, compounding gains. That's the what and the why. But now let's talk about the how. How do we actually do it? How do we make these habits stick for good? Well, the secret isn't to just try harder. It's to be way smarter about our environment. This idea completely flips the script on what we think about self-control. The people who seem to have the most of it, they aren't necessarily stronger or more disciplined than the rest of us. They're just smarter. They spend way less time and energy resisting temptation because they've designed their lives and their environments so that temptation rarely even shows up in the first place. They make the right choice the easiest choice. To do this, the book lays out a really simple but incredibly powerful 4-step framework for building good habits. It's so easy to remember. You need to make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. Let's break down what that actually looks like. Okay, here's how this plays out in real life. To make taking your vitamins obvious, don't hide them in a cabinet. Put the bottle right there on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker. You can't miss it. To make a chore you hate attractive, try pairing it with something you love, like only let yourself listen to your favorite podcast while you're doing the laundry. To make working out easy, lay out your gym clothes the night before. It removes one little step, one little excuse. And for that satisfying reward, get a habit tracker and feel that little hit of dopamine every time you check off a box. Simple. And here's a super effective technique for making a new habit obvious. It's called habit stacking. All you do is you anchor a new habit you want to start to a habit you already do automatically. For example, after I brush my teeth, I will take my vitamins. Your current habit, brushing your teeth, becomes the trigger for the new one. It's so simple, and it works like a charm. Really, it all boils down to this one word: friction. Our brains are hardwired to conserve energy, which means, whether we like it or not, we will almost always choose the path of least resistance. So if you want to build a good habit, your job is to make it feel like you're sliding downhill with the wind at your back, not trying to push a giant boulder uphill. You have to remove every possible point of friction you can. In the relationship is incredibly clear. When the friction is high, when a habit is difficult, inconvenient, or complicated, your chances of actually sticking with it are super low. But as you start to remove that friction, making the habit as simple and seamless as possible, your chances of success just skyrocket. You're not trying harder, you're just engineering for ease. So after all this, the final question isn't about some grand plan to redesign your entire life overnight. It's much smaller than that, and much more powerful. Just ask yourself this: what is one tiny, almost laughably small 1% change you can make today to cast a vote for the person you want to become?